career and make it better and more fruitful for you. Thank you so much.
So we'll open up to questions. And one question that I have right off the bat is, how do you respond when a client says, I don't need that rider, when in fact they actually do really need that rider?
And that can come up, and you may be very aware of reasons why they do need it. So you ask them an open-ended question. You say, tell me more about that. Why is it that you feel that you don't need that? And they will share a bunch more information with you. And then you can say, have you considered this? And you bring up those points that you already knew that they may not have considered, and they have that aha moment. Go, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. The child writer is a good one. If the guy's calling and saying, hey, I need the 20-year term at 2 million, and you start talking to them and they mention their 4 kids, and you say, did you consider a child writer? And they might say, I didn't know there was such a thing. And you start telling them and you quote it, and it's really easy, and it's very valuable, and it's very affordable. They'll be surprised usually at how inexpensive these things are.
And how can offering the right rider, I know you touched on this, but I would love for you to go in depth about this. How can offering the right rider increase client retention and referrals?
Well, for one thing, the conversation itself, Chris, that's a great question. You go through the conversation and you get to know the person real well, real quick when you start talking about their personal life and allow them to open up to you, and you start talking back and forth. So you're developing a good relationship. They also realize that you care about what their particular situation is, that you're not just taking an order and giving them something to sign and saying, okay, let's do it, and walking away, and that you care enough to make sure that they're covered properly and giving them the good advice and caring about their loved ones. This is all about the loved ones, right? So if you start talking about how it's going to help their spouse and their kids and cover them even if they're disabled and can't work, and they won't have to drop their policy, even if they don't ultimately take your recommendation, they will definitely understand how much you took the time to get to know what they're doing and care enough to quote them and give a recommendation as to what they really need to protect their family. And the same guy who might not take all your recommendations will say, hey, I need you to talk to my brother and his wife, and give you a referral.
And one final question that I have is, what language can you use to turn would you like this rider into here's why this rider protects you best?
Again, open-ended questions, I think, like, did you consider, or have you considered such things? Have you looked into such things? What do you think of such things? And then they'll start telling you, and then you say, okay, tell me a bit about your kids. Tell me a bit about your wife. What does she do for a living? And you get them to have that conversation specifically about themselves. And in doing so, they share a lot of information. And then you can pick certain pieces of info out of what they share with you to say, okay, this writer addresses a concern regarding that specific thing, and so forth. So you just have to think on your feet and ask them open-ended questions so that they share information, and then start taking notes as they're speaking, and pick out those nuggets and respond to them.
And it looks like there are no other questions. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out to David. He's very quick to respond and he'll answer your question in detail. And as always, within 24 hours, we will provide you all with a recording of this. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Again, within 24 hours, you'll receive a recording of this presentation. And
Thank
we
you so
look
much, guys.
forward to seeing you all again.
Take care.